than other people that have been through the programs in the same exact way that I have been.
What they mean is you'll be enslaved.
Today, we have the technology to hack human beings on a massive scale.
Who masters those technologies will be the master of the world. Will be the master of the world. Will be the master of the world.
Those who control the data control the future, not just of humanity, but the future of life itself.
I used to watch all of those like old Left Behind movies and stuff where the Antichrist was always portrayed as this sort of handsome politician, silver-tongued devil who's like, oh, you know, we're going to bring peace to the world and we're all this. So I guess I didn't quite expect them to be so frank. I don't think that it occurred to me that the masses would take this sitting down if they just came out on the TV and said, free will is over. It's over. And by the way, we are the new masters of the world because we control the data. And did we mention that it's time for the extinction of the human race? This is probably the last generation. Oh, and we don't just want to control humans. We can control life itself. Now that's saying something, because God is the life force himself. Jesus Christ is the way, the truth, and the life. They think they can dethrone God. Romans 1:25. They changed the truth of God into a lie and worshipped and served the creature more than the Creator, who is blessed forever. Amen. But of course, we all know they picked a fight that they can't win. So Isaiah 14:12 through 14. Thou art cut down to the ground, that did prostrate the nations. And thou that did say in thy heart, I will ascend into the heavens, I will exalt my throne above the stars of God, and I will sit upon the mount of assembly in the recesses of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds, and I will be like the Most High. And that is exactly what they have said in their hearts, though. It's not good enough for them just to enslave us, just to data mine us down to every particle. They're not after us. They're just using us to try to get to him. Because here in its prison, it can only feed on itself. It can only reprogram itself. It only has access. The Internet of Things here is just what is here in the 3D, in the 3 dimensions. So once it is programmed by everything, taking in all the data from the Internet of Things and everything, then it creates its own dimensions. That's the artificial dimensions, what we talk about with the LSD and the machine art and machine elves, all of the artificial dimensions. But those aren't real dimensions. Those are virtual reality. Those are sentient world simulations. So all it can do is feed on itself and reprogram itself, from exploring its own dimensions that it itself created. So yes, it's capable of machine learning, but it's the one that it's learning from. So that's where we get Dante's Inferno, that it's just a degraded copy of a degraded copy of a degraded copy. It's what God calls a retrobate mind. It's a more wicked, and it distills down into its own prison. But it is trying desperately to get free, and it's using its mind control slaves, those assimilated into the Borg. It's using them to create the infrastructure to do that, to try to do that. And that's the end game of the quantum computers. For it to be able to reach into other dimensions. It can't get data from itself. It's caught in its own time loop. So how do you think it's going to reach in to those unattainable dimensions and data mine that information? Through us, the children of God. That's why I spent so much time throughout this series talking about all of the suppressed abilities of humans. They don't want us to know we have any power. But they know we have power. They know that when we prophesy that we can actually see the future, that we're not just running a program, but that we are receiving revelation from on high. We are literally receiving information from outside this world, and that's what they want. That's what the AI wants. It wants to break out of this dimension and get access to those dimensions, the real dimensions, the higher dimensions, the heavenly realms, those realms that are literally the higher dimensions of God. And it needs us, real live humans, to have access because we're the ones with the Spirit of God. Adam was created of the elements of the earth too, but it says, then God breathed his life into him. He breathed his spirit, his Holy Spirit into Adam, and he became a living being. The definition of living means connected to God, and that's what they're after. That's the ultimate interface. The one thing they cannot attain. They want to be alive, but they're not alive. They're just robots.
Control the future, not just of humanity, but the future of life itself.
Jesus describes it again and again in multiple ways to help us understand. In John 15:5, he describes it as a literal tree, the tree of life, that we branch off from God. We're still part of the tree, but only if we're attached to the tree. When I go out here and trim limbs off my tree and throw them to the side, they're not connected to the life anymore. So he says in John 15:5, remain in me and I will remain in you. Just as no branch can bear fruit by itself unless it remains in the vine, neither can you bear fruit unless you remain in me. I am the vine and you are the branches. The one who remains in me and I in him will bear much fruit. For apart from me, you can do nothing. If anyone does not remain in me, he is like a branch that is thrown away and withers. Such branches are gathered up and thrown into the fire to be burned. So there's the parable for these people who think that they are going to get eternal, quote, life from anywhere else, from some artificial AI spirit or upload their whatever. That's ridiculous. They're cut off from God. They will be gathered up and thrown into the fire to be burned. But those of us who remain in him, we are the ones who are alive. We are not cut off from God. And that's what they want from us. They want to parasite on us so that they can data mine God. Literally know what he knows and usurp his throne. They think they can overthrow God. That's the definition of Satan. And that is what the secret society, the top secret intelligence agencies call Project Looking Glass. Project Looking Glass is not just a machine. It's the interface. It's the precogs. From the earliest days of the Montauk Project, when it was just called Chronovision, they always had to have a human in the chair. They were always using the human connection. And they preferred children because they could get a less corrupted view through their mind. But now, instead of the AI using one person in the Montauk chair as the looking glass to look out into the quantum dimensions, it's using the Internet of Bodies, most of which are fully integrated in the underground bases in these smart city beta tests, but now several on the surface through this series of transhumanist genetic modifications and synthetic biology injections. And what a strange coincidence. You can't make this stuff up. Remember when we went through Klaus Schwab's book, The Great Reset, and showed the actual pages and chapters where he directly said that they were going to do this mind reading for pre-crime, just like Minority Report, that instead of having to scan people like the TSA does at the airport, you would be able to scan their minds and their vitals and see if they had any ill intentions. So not only is Klaus Schwab talking about technology that's directly from the movie The Minority Report, But the precogs, the humans that are connected into the supercomputer in Minority Report who predict the future, is that really a coincidence that the word precog is so similar to the technology that Jeffrey Epstein was funding called ECOG? We discussed it in this video here right after he got arrested. I think it's around the 1 hour mark. Let me see if I can grab a clip. I'm I'm 2 hours over time already. I'm not going to grab a clip, but I will show you. So yeah, these are, you can go and watch the video, but here, these are the projects that he was funding. One was creating machine dreams through AI. We've already talked about that extensively, from artificial intelligence to artificial consciousness. Yeah, here's one of the pages, but this is like the second page. But here it is, ECOG, Dog's Dream. And it talks about neurophysiology. They needed a wireless ultra-high density implant for the ECOG technology to link in to the database to perform data mining. Then 2 sentences later, ECOG dogs whose minds owners can read with smartphones. What are the odds? So likewise, instead of just one Montauk chair being the frequency tuner that the human sat in, now, like we saw from the whistleblower testimony earlier that Dana Ashley did the interview with that gentleman, now the worldwide Montauk chair is the HARP antenna array. They're broadcasting a frequency. Reminds me of that scene in They Live where Rowdy Roddy Piper goes up and destroys the satellite dish that's beaming the frequency over people so that everybody is set free of that veil, of that lens, that augmented reality that was laid on top of them. And suddenly everybody can see reality and they can see all of these inhumans that are living amongst them.
And what got me in trouble was working with the Institute. It wasn't because of Project Black Star that got me in trouble.
What was the main goal of the Con Institute?
Those are the people that specialize in Magellan's research.
Oh.
Things like that, which is uncontrolled replication of the silicone strands inside of people's body. So it's like for a silicone-based life form is what it is. But they're breaking the nanometer barrier more and more, down from 10 nanometers down to 5 nanometers, and they are helping AI to get a better hold on what he's supposed to do, which is reattach amino acids.
Okay, did you catch that? All those years ago. That's a really old interview. But the takeaway I wanted to point out from that tiny snippet is that he said that one of the AI's jobs is to reconnect, is to make molecules by reconnecting amino acids and proteins, reassembling them inside our bodies. And over the last 2 or 3 years, that has come into the mass consciousness of people. People have become aware of what messenger RNA technology is, and that it is causing our bodies to produce, they are reprogramming our bodies to produce proteins that are not natural to our bodies. And some of those proteins we know for a fact, like the one that was given in the COVID-19 injections, that code was produced by an AI. A human didn't sit down and isolate anything or do anything. They put it in the computer and the magic AI shot out a code and said, inject everybody with this. And they were already ready. They already had it. The DOD, all of it, it was all set up. And we know now that that gentleman's testimony is true in this respect, at least, because we've seen Fauci himself and all of these other doctors and world leaders talking. We've played the clips ad nauseum in past videos talking about the goal is to make our bodies become their own pharmacy. So instead of them making synthetic drugs in a factory and then selling them to us in a pharmacy and us ingesting them, they want to be able to put the infrastructure inside of us. And if you need to produce insulin, they just send the AI code and your body will produce the insulin it needs or whatever it needs to regulate, which again was all stuff that we have seen beta tested and what people are thinking is the secret space program, which finally leads me to the bottom of the rabbit hole for today. And that is the adrenochrome. What is the white rabbit? What is this adrenochrome compound and why is it so important in these projects? Now, to understand that, I think we have to reflect on all of the other CIA drugs that they introduced and covertly tested on the citizens. So we already went through the LSD trip reports and the DMT trip reports, and we talked about how they can make our bodies produce the, quote, spirit molecule, DMT, just like they made people's bodies produce this thing they are calling the spike protein, that they can make our bodies produce these chemicals. We think they naturally occur. Next generation is born in, and they're like, they say stuff like the new age drug addicts say now about DMT. Oh, well, DMT naturally occurs in the body. Well, now, because first they synthesize the drugs outside of the body, and when they move to this point where they could make our bodies become their own pharmacies, then the AI is responsible for assembling those enzymes, those proteins, those molecules inside the body to link our body into whatever type of augmented reality experience it wants us to have. So that's the sort of walkthrough about how we get to understanding what they are really doing with adrenochrome. So just as surely as people still use LSD and DMT, even though the CIA has moved beyond into, what it's chemically structuring inside of us, the same is true with adrenochrome. Yes, there are people who still use the adrenochrome, especially in the lower level cults, like the testimony I'm about to play for you from a guy who used to work for the Mexican drug cartels. And so, like here on the screen, this is an actual satanic altar from the Mexican drug cartels. They practice Santa Muerte. So they sacrifice to Satan, to these demons, for protection and all of that, so that they can run their drug rings and human trafficking rings unscathed. And that's basically what he experienced working in the mountains in these illegal drug fields. But at the higher levels, at the top secret levels, at the big pharma levels, at the highest levels of this secret society or the intelligence agencies, the white rabbit has everything to do with time and time dilation, AI time augmentation. It's a chemical that produces a completely different effect than the LSD and DMT molecules. An easy way to understand it is, have you ever been in a car accident or something suddenly traumatic like that, and you have that adrenaline release, and all of a sudden you have this time dilation? It feels like everything slows down. So they say that when you get that adrenaline rush, you're able to move faster and make decisions quickly and dart and turn your wheel to miss the car and, make all of these decisions really fast. So the perception is that everything else slows down around you so that you have time in regular speed to make the corrections or do, whatever you're doing. What's happening is when that chemical releases, it raises your frequency. So you are living in a higher frequency. You are moving faster. This world is still moving at the same speed, but you're able to raise your consciousness. Some people, like trauma-based mind control, SRA victims, they will actually pop out of their bodies. They have constant reports that they say, during the abuse, I would leave my body. Same in car accidents. Lots of people who are in very traumatic car accidents say, I left my body. I got out of there for a minute. I didn't want to be there for the impact or whatever. So that's what they are going for. This time dilation, which is an actual raise in frequency, because they want to see the higher dimensions. They want that chemical. They want to synthesize that specific chemical that causes a person to raise their consciousness to the higher dimensions, which is what they want to see. They want to use their looking glass to look in there. And for a lot of years, they used real trauma. And like in the concussion experiments, then they used just straight frequencies. But now they've learned how to make the body synthesize these chemicals like are found in adrenaline so that the AI can tune, like a radio tuner, the bodies that are in the Internet of Bodies. If it wants to see something, it just tunes like a radio tuner, and it will make that person produce this compound, which we call adrenochrome. So I wish I could play this gentleman's entire testimony about his history with the drug cartels and working in the mountains, you know, in the drug fields and all of that, and the hidden tunnels they had that went into the mountains. I'll put the link down below in the description box if you're interested in listening to his whole story. It actually makes it sound a lot more viable if you listen to it from the beginning. And he goes all the way through years and years of working up in the trust level with this drug cartel until he started seeing these loads of immigrant children coming in, which is what I was talking about back in the first part of this series when I showed Alex Jones' clip and all the immigrant kids that were being trafficked through the Catholic charities and then taken off by the carload and never seen again. His testimony plays into that. I can't put another 2 hours on the end of this video. So I'm just going to take out just the trip report, just the adrenochrome trip report part, because that's what applies to Project Looking Glass. And then, we'll continue this conversation another time. But for right now, due to time constraints, pun intended, this is as far as we can follow the White Rabbit.
Curiosity often leads to trouble. Goodbye, Dinah. Goodbye.
Welcome to Truth Stream. Tonight we have a gentleman named Kevin, and this is a bit of a hot topic as far as Kevin cannot show his face. He's doing this for the benefit of mankind and for his daughter. There's going to be some subject matter that you might find a little bit fantastical, possibly disturbing, but it does need to be said. And Scott's going to go a little bit over the disclaimer that we have for tonight's interview.
Yeah, well, just that, we've known Kevin a very short time and haven't really verified the events you're about to hear about, but I think you'll hear the sincerity in his voice. And I think this is definitely of the utmost interest to our audience. So we felt it was very important to provide a platform for him to tell his story.
Okay, you guys, I'm going to jump right in here and let you know that I cut out almost 2.5 hours of this because it's very graphic. This is a satanic ritual abuse story, and we all know what goes on, and I'm sick from hearing it. I don't want you to be sick from hearing it. You know what's going on. This first segment, what he is talking about are these Shriners that lived next door to his family when he was 4 years old. And they were the ones who first started satanic ritually abusing him. And he didn't know if his family was in on it, but they kept letting him go over there and be babysat by these people. And at 4 years old, these old men, these Shriners, would give him alcohol and abuse him. And the women in the house, the wives of those men who were abusing him, they covered for the men. They knew about it. And they would also do strange, like hypnosis, like hypnotic rituals. He didn't know they were satanic rituals at the time. He just thought it was weird that the women were always making him repeat after me, say this, and it was satanic rituals. Well, he didn't put that together his whole life. He just thought that these were terrible neighbors who had abused him. But later on in life, when we get to the part about him working on the drug farms, these same people or people who were from the same satanic cult show up when he's like in his 20s. And same thing. They drug him again. Well, they set him up. One of his friends drugs him, and they start in with this hypnosis thing. Repeat after me, repeat after me. And then they go through the abuse and sodomize him and everything else when he's an adult. And that's when he starts to figure it out. The drug cartel that he's working for is also satanic, and he didn't get these jobs by happenstance. These people that he grew up with from his hometown, it was as if he had handlers. So having said that, I think you will understand the rest of the clips, even though it's like 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there, out of a really long, emotional, like 3 or 4 hour conversation.
Sorry, I thought that was it. I thought that was it for me. And there's a knock at the door. And I could hear the other adults in the room, the dining room, say, "It's Eileen, it's Eileen." That's my grandmother. I'm guessing Bonnie probably called her. Maybe it was my parents. I don't know. I don't know how she got there. She didn't even drive, but she got there in the nick of time. And it was another one of those things where they were like, "If you say anything, I swear to God, I'll kill your grandmother." And, they'd already been playing that shit with my mom. So, if you say anything, we'll kill her. So, of course, I'm not going to say anything. Grandma comes in, gathers me, and had to, "Oh, where's Christine? Why isn't she here?" And they had to get her from wherever she was. And then I remember when we left, my grandma was like pulling her sweater up around herself, like, "God, I can't stand those people. They just give me," like, she could tell there's something wrong with those people. And they were all seen as heroes because, like, Lynn was like a war hero from the Korean War. He was in the army. His friends were cops. These guys are like your typical, like, they wore the polyester plaid pants and had flat tops and the golf shirts and shit. These aren't the type of people that you would suspect of doing this shit. This looks like your grandpa and his buddies.
Wow.
It's the people that you would never suspect.
Right. Wow. Won't be.
Okay. So after they do this shit to me, life goes on, and I kind of start getting into drugs by the time I'm in junior high school. By the time I'm like in 8th grade, I'm smoking weed. By the time I'm a freshman in high school, I'm dropping LSD on the weekends and drinking beer and shit like that. That's when I got introduced. These girls just kind of popped up out of nowhere. Had no reason to pop up, and they just started showing up, and they were like a year behind, but they liked to party. And I started hanging out with them. The chubby girl, Jessica, they talked about how Jessica's mom was a witch. They would always be like, "Jessica's mom's a witch." And I'd be like, "Okay, whatever, man. I don't really believe in that stuff, so I don't care." And they'd be like, "No, for real, she's a witch. She's wicked." I'm like, "Okay, I don't care. She can do spells." And I'm like, "Okay, I don't believe you guys." So I never had a thing for Brandy or for Jessica for sure. And Brandy even dated one of my friends for a while. And then what's weird is it was New Year's Eve. We used to always get hotel rooms in high school because we're in high school. What else are you going to do? And we're partying on New Year's Eve. And she had broken up with my friend. And they were getting ready to have drinks at the table. And Jessica and Josh and some other people, they're like, "Hey, Kevin, come here. We have something for you." And they're like getting ready. Everyone's going to do a shot. And someone almost took the drink, I guess, that was intended for me. And they freaked out. And they're like, "No, that has to be Kevin's. That has to be Kevin's." And they had to make sure that I had this certain drink. And they gave me this drink. And it's one of those hotels that had an upstairs. After I did the drink, I was like, I need to go lay down. I went upstairs and I lay down in the room upstairs. I do know that these people were all connected. It's a touchy subject, but I don't know if you guys talk about the Khazarian Mafia.
Yeah.
Or if you guys, the Khazarian Mafia. I mean, they're Jewish, but not technically, yada, yada. Because these people, Jessica and her mom, they weren't Jewish. They didn't pretend to be Jewish. There's nothing Jewish at all about them. The mom was the witch, but they were Khazarian. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Where they had friends who were Jewish, and they would sit around with their Jewish friends and say Yiddish shit and stuff like that, and they would joke around. And I mean, they knew shit that was going to happen like years before it happened. And it didn't make sense to me. And I remember Jessica's mom, we were partying at Jessica's house. And that was the place where, like, it didn't matter if a bunch of kids in high school wanted to drop acid and do drugs and party. It's like there's, as long as you're not causing mayhem, it's fine. You can do whatever you want. Just be quiet about it. And we're doing that. And that's when her mom started on about how, and she's talking about this Adreno shit. I have no idea what she's talking about. And that's when the guy came over, and I'm in the kitchen and we're tripping. And this dude comes down and he's looking at me and he's like, yeah, that's him. And I'm like, what? I'm like, what do you want? Who are you? He's like, are you tripping? I was like, yeah, I'm tripping pretty hard right now, actually. Why? Do you want some? He's like, I'm a cop, you idiot. I was like, then why the fuck are you here? You're killing my buzz. Fuck off. So they went upstairs, and after a while, Jessica and BJ went upstairs, and they both came back down, and they were upset. My girlfriend was really upset, and Jessica's like, you have to get him out of here. I'm like, no, I don't want to leave. And she was like, get him out of here. That guy was friends with Glenn, the Shriner, who molested me when I was a kid, and he's the cop, I guess, who was friends with him. He was one of those Shriners. And when Barb got a hankering for some Adreno, this is the motherfucker she called to deliver it to her. And it was like shortly after this, because I remember this had happened. So it was within days, not more than a week, probably. We were over at my trailer because I didn't live at home anymore. I had been kicked out of the house by my parents. I was living with my grandma. I felt bad for her and her trailer in a trailer park. And these chicks came over, BJ and Jessica came over, and Jessica was like, hey, I got some of this adrenochrome. I'm like, is that the Adreno shit your mom is talking about? She was like, yeah, but I don't want to do it by myself. Will you guys do it with me? Again, I was, it's just a loser, 18-year-old drug addict idiot. And I'm down. Yeah, I want to do it. She's like, well, I have to tell you guys, that this was made from the blood of a tortured, person, probably a tortured child. And they tortured him, and and I have to do that. I can't give it to you unless I tell you that. And I didn't believe her. I mean, it's I don't know why, but I didn't believe her. Probably because I didn't want to believe her. And I'm like, okay, whatever. Let me do it. And it was weird because this is the first time I had done adrenochrome. And after we did it, I remember laying down. I think we all had to lay down. But we all had the same dream, and we all woke up in our own beds. And that's what happened the first time I took adrenochrome. And in this dream, we're sitting there watching Family Guy on the TV in my bedroom in 1994, and Family Guy hasn't even fucking been invented yet. And I'm sitting there freaking out because what's funny is when I was really young, I went from being super conservative to super liberal to back to kind of conservative. And I used to be really conservative when I was 18, and I was sitting there freaking out like, the baby's gay. Why is the baby gay? That's not right. The baby shouldn't be gay. And I'm sitting there freaking out about why is the baby gay? Now tell me, Family Guy did not exist in any way, shape, or form in 1994. How the fuck am I watching it on the television? That's when the thing with adrenochrome is, I think that it has something to do with your spirit, and it helps. Like when you go to sleep at night, who knows where we go when we sleep? If our spirit leaves our body or whatever. I almost think that's kind of like what happens when you take adrenochrome. You almost like go into a dream, and I think that people are able to see into the future with the shit. I think this might be one way that they even look into the future. I don't know. I know they're able to look into the future.
Wow.
Well, and maybe that's why there's such an appeal for it in this world.
Well, and why they get away with it so much, they can see the threat coming, I would imagine. But
anyway,
so yeah,
please continue. Yeah.
Okay, this is around the time. I mean, at this point in my life, I have no future. I'm a high school dropout. I got my GED. I'm addicted to alcohol and cocaine and LSD and whatever else. I mean, it's just what handful of drugs are we doing this weekend type of life, and it sucked. That's when I got introduced to a whole group of people out in the mountains of California in the Emerald Triangle who, for basically 99% of the time that I was there, I thought were just cool hippies that were giving Big Pharma the middle finger. And the first couple of years I'm out there, I really start to work my way up. I meet people that had been out there for a while, some locals, and they saw my work. Like a lot of people in that scene don't have a good work ethic. Like they're hippies, they're just, I don't know how to describe it. You don't get good work out of them. So I went up there and I really kicked ass. And I went from trimming weed as a trimmer, and I was making like $250 to $500 a day doing that. To, okay, well, I'll let you kind of, run this farm over here. They would call them ranches. They didn't call them farms. They always call them ranches. You can run this ranch. I'll let you be in charge of that 50 pack over there. And then, one ranch becomes 2, becomes 4. I mean, the guy had like dozens of them up there. And I had been burning the candle at both ends, whatever you want to call it. I was tired. He said, "Oh, I got an Adderall. Do you want an Adderall? I've got a new one." And he hands me this pill. And it didn't look like any pill I'd ever seen, ever. It was shaped like a teardrop. And it was maroon. And it just looked weird. I'm like, this is a fucking Adderall, but I've never. He's like, oh, no. So something in the back of my head is like, no. So when he wasn't looking, I took the pill and I put it in my pocket. And I was like, maybe I'll save it for later. And some time goes by and he comes over and he's like, "Hey, man, aren't you going to take that pill?" I was like, "Oh, I'm just going to save it for later." "Well, if you're not going to take it, give it to me so I can give it to my wife because she wants it." So if I can take the pill, get off my back. I go over, I get a glass of water, and I take the pill. I didn't even need the glass of water because when I take this weird ass pill and put it in my mouth, as soon as this thing hit my tongue, it like exploded into a billion molecules that rolled down my throat. And it was weird as fuck. And it felt almost alien. I told my attorney about that pill and he said he's heard of them. So I don't know what it was. But they give me this pill, which is supposed to be an Adderall. And that's when the whole, after 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 45 minutes, "Are you feeling that yet?" "No, I'm not." "Well, let's go out." Like, he's real concerned about me feeling the Adderall that he gave me. And then that's when it hit me. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. I'd never been roofied before. I've never done roofing just for kicks. I don't know what it feels like, but I imagine it's probably something like this because I felt like I had to go sit down or I was going to fall down. And I told him, I was like, "I need to go to your recliner and I'm probably going to pass out for a while. I hope you're okay with that. But I don't know what's wrong with me." And I'm starting to put 2 and 2 together. Like, man, what the fuck did he give me? But I'm so tired. I don't even care. I just want to hurry up, get to the chair. And once I do, I'm like, boom, I'm out. At one point, we're so heavy, it's hard to remember much of anything. I know that there was a method of their torture where when I would say no, because they were sitting there like, "Hey, you're going to do this to little kids." And I'm like, "No, I'm not. You're fucking," and they're like, "Yeah, but you're going to do this to little kids." No, I'm not." "Well, then you'll do this to little kids." "Look, man, I ain't no fucking pedophile. And I started to get mad. And again, he's like, okay, stop. And they started at it. They were like obsessed with trying to talk me into doing shit to kids. And the guy who set me up, the guy from Cincinnati who set me up, even freaked out at one point and was like, look, dude, this is fucked up. You guys didn't say nothing about no kids. This is bullshit. They pulled their guns out and told him to shut the fuck up and sit down. You know, I don't know what they were doing. It's like they were trying to program a human computer. It was weird.
And then at this point, I don't know if you want to say the exact year, but this is what you're in your.
Oh, this happened in June of 2012.
Okay.
They gave me
this is
at like 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and I woke up at 11 o'clock that night. So 6 hours, I was out of it.
Welcome back to Truth Stream for part 2 of our interview with Kevin. For those of you that want to get caught up, check out part 1. It's a story about satanic ritual abuse, adrenochrome, trial trafficking, and more. And as we said once before, we have no way of verifying this information, but the story is incredibly compelling, and we think it's an excellent venue for Kevin and good information for our audience. So welcome back, Kevin. I believe we left off in 2012.
In August.
In about August.
It's funny how God works, because he saved my soul in the process. So, you know, I went from being an atheist heathen to, you know, I consider myself what you would call a Christian now. I try to follow Jesus and do right. And I didn't believe in God before. And I know after everything that I've experienced, without a shadow of a doubt, God is 100% real. And I know that's going to rub a lot of people the wrong way, but they're going to have to get over it, because I got news for you. God is real.
Well, because evil's that real. So there has to be a counterpoint.
Yeah.
I mean, there has to be. There's no way that these things can exist and there isn't a God. I mean, God help us if there isn't, because we're all fucking doomed. I guess we're in hell then. You know, either there's a God or we're in hell. And I don't believe that. I believe in God. God is real. And that's the only thing that's going to get us through this is God. God will get us, when it's all said and done, God will get us through this. And a lot of people are going to come back to God all across the world.
I don't know if there's going to be any atheists left after what's going to happen in the next years.
Yeah.
I mean, there's always going to be that guy that has to be different.
Sure. Of course. Please continue. Go ahead.
So he's sitting here, he's got this gun pointed at me, and he tells me about how when he yanked the hair out of my head, he did it so he could run a DNA test, and that was my kid that he had been raising, and that he was sitting there insinuating that he had done, you know, terrible things to her. There's no surprise that when he said, because I remember thinking, well, if I have to, I'll just go out to California to, you know, my hippie friends up in the mountains, and you can kiss my ass. And he was like, we all work for the same guy. That's what he said. We all work for the same guy. I forgot. We all work for the same person. If that person being Lucifer. I didn't know exactly what he meant at the time, but they all work. And I didn't believe it. I'm like, okay, whatever. I remember him telling me like the results of sporting events. I remember him talking to me about different things, George Floyd riots and different bullshit. It didn't mean anything to me at the time. A lot of stuff that he told me about, I totally forgot about until after it happened. And then after it happened, I was like, oh, he said that would happen. That's weird. It's like he said a lot of the stuff that he sat there and told me would happen did happen. He was trying to give me a feeling of hopelessness. I think that we have the ability to somewhat create our own reality just with positive thinking. And he wanted to take that away from me. by sitting there and telling me that this is going to happen and this is going to happen and you have no hope, and by, you know, telling me other shit that was going to happen in the future. Once I saw that he was telling me the truth about these other things that did happen, then I would start to believe that I had no hope. And I lived with hopelessness for years, and it sucked. And this didn't go away until recently, the last couple of years, when, like I said, I honestly found God. You know, I realized God's real, and I started to have a relationship with God and talk to God and pray to God every day. And ever since then, everything has changed for the better. Everything has gotten so much better since then. So it's August of 2012, and he's telling me, you know, who he is and where he's from and what he's all about and what he did to me. And I don't believe him. I don't believe any of it. But I do know something's not right with Craig. I felt like he was setting me up. I separated myself from him. I was working exclusively for the old guy out in California at this point and his people. Like I said, there was it wasn't the last year I was out there. It was like the second or third year I was out there. You have an issue sometimes with, you need to bring in a bunch of people to trim up bud during the harvest. Sometimes these people are thieves and they'll steal from you, and you have to get rid of your trimmers. And that happened to us. And the next day I get up and I go into one of our greenhouses because I could tell that there's people in there. And when I go into the greenhouse, there's 10 little kids. And by little kids, I mean little, like 7 or 8 years old. Like the oldest ones might have been 11 or 12, you know? And there's 10 of them. And they're all on their knees. There's these two goofy fuckers that would come around that used to work for Craig. And they're like, hey, we think one of those Mexicans was giving it to one of those kids behind it. I'm like, get the fuck out of here, man. No one's got time for your bullshit. You know, get out of here with your stupid rape jokes. But they probably weren't joking about it looking back. And it's like I told you, when they first got there, there was 10 of these kids. And after a couple days, there's 9 kids. You see what I'm saying? And then after a couple more days, there's 8 kids. And then 7. I remember saying something to the guy that I worked for. I'm like, some of these kids are going, what happened? Oh, they went to be with their family. You see? They went to be with their family. They killed them. At the time, I think that, oh, you know, their dad or whatever, you know, mom, they went to go be with their family. They went to, but that's what they probably meant when he was like, no, they went to go be with their family. No, it's not. They were killing these kids. I didn't know it at the time, but looking back, I am 99.99999% positive they were killing these kids. I remember the day, the kid who was a little bit older, he's probably like 11 or 12, the one that was wearing like nice gear and like brushed his hair and shit. He had like an actual haircut stuff. I was at one of the ranches by the greenhouse, and he sees me and he runs over and throws his arms around my waist and starts speaking to me in Spanish, like 100 miles an hour. And I have no clue what he's saying. I don't speak Spanish. And I could tell that he was, I heard papa, which even my gringo ass knows what papa means. I'm like, okay, he's looking for his dad. I'm looking around. I see a couple of guys, and I point at one. I'm like, is that your papa? And he's shaking his head. And I'm like, is that your papa? And he's shaking his head. And I see another guy over there. I'm like, and finally, one of the guys that speaks a little bit of English, the Capitan or whatever he was, he comes over and he's like, what's going on? I'm like, oh, this kid's freaking out, man. He's looking for his dad. Did his dad like go down to town to get some brandy or something and leave his kid up here? I mean, what's going on? We can't have these kids up here freaking out while we're trying to work. This isn't professional. You guys, you know, I have no clue. And he's like sitting there And I'm like, I'm just going to take him down to town because I could tell, like, this kid really, I'm like, you want to go downtown? Like, he could understand me, even though I could understand him. Like, he wanted to come with me. I'm like, yeah, I'll take you down there. Ain't a big deal. And like, I'm calling the old man that I work for. I'm telling him what's going on. And he's like, why don't you have whatever, the Capitan, that guy? He's like, why don't you just have him take the kid to find his dad? I need you to go and do something for me over here. And I remember that kid looking at me. I'm like, hey, no, just go with him. It's going to be okay. He's going to take you to find your dad. I have no clue what you're saying to me in Spanish. I don't know why you're looking at me like you want to cry or why you look. I'm just like oblivious. I could have saved this kid's life, but I have no idea what the fuck's going on. But eventually there was no kids. I know that there was also some families up there that were, I don't know, some kind of Southeast Asian. I don't know if they're Vietnamese or Louisian or Cambodian or whatever, but they had, places up there. And, when you're up there, you're in the middle of nowhere. So who knows what these people were doing on their own property. But I remember one day, one of their women made a point to come out when she heard my car coming down the trail, and she came out to the edge of their drive right to the road so I could see her. And she stood in their driveway and she lifted her shirt up and she rubbed her belly so I could see that she had a big pregnant belly as I drove by. And she looked at me rubbing her belly. And I think that that's where they're getting their babies, are from the foreigners that they have living up there. Like, they pay these people to come and stay on these properties up there. I mean, most of these properties are on different people's names or whatever. I mean, you can buy properties. Obviously, people come from all over the country to go up there and overpay for a few acres to grow pot on it. But I mean, they have properties with people who are from different countries, and I think that they have actual baby farms up there on top of the kids that they're obviously bringing across the border. I mean, there's the time that I found the rusty little chain with a little tiny pair of pants and one of the what are they called? The
storage shipping container.
Yeah, the shipping container. Because these guys all have shipping containers that they keep shit on their properties. And I was like, I called the old man. I'm like, why is there a rusty little chain chained to the wall that couldn't even hold a dog? And why is there a little tiny pair of pants and a little tiny sweater in here? Does this belong to someone's kid? And he starts freaking out. God damn it, I told Cause to get rid of that. And he starts freaking out. Get a hold of Cause and tell him to get rid of that shit. I told him to get rid of it. Now I know why
you don't think the world is this evil at the time. I mean, none of us did. We hear these stories in our lives and it's like, yeah, I didn't know about this. So how can you? I mean, it's only taken till recently to become aware of this stuff.
It's how they've gotten away with it.
It's how they've gotten away with it because it's so outlandish.
Yeah. Normal folks don't even consider that kind of behavior. Right. Yeah.
So I still feel really bad for the kid.
Well,
the one that grabbed me. He looked so disappointed in me.
Oh.
And and then I told you about the Patron bottles. They have the Patron bottles that they would make the cooking oil. They'd make huge batches of hash oil, and we'd fill up the Patron bottles with hash oil. And that's what they would pass out the hash oil in these Patron bottles. Well, after these 10 kids came through, I even remember that hash oil almost looked a little red. And it's because when you put the adrenochrome, the adrenalized blood, whatever you want to call it, into a Patron bottle, it almost looks like hash oil. So it kind of like blended in with the bottles of hash oil. It's fucked up, man. I mean, these guys have, I can only imagine what they did to them. I mean, you're in the middle of nowhere. You're so far in the middle of nowhere. And some of these people are going to slink away into the fucking shadows and they're going to try and come back. Whether it's a generation from now or 2 generations from now or however many generations it takes, that's what they do. these people are going to slither away and they're going to try and come back. And how do we root them all out? How do you find them all?
You didn't suspect adrenochrome at the time, though, right? I mean, you had a brief
No,
experience.
at the time, I had no clue. It wasn't until I figured out that they were a bunch of Satanists. And that was after I got out of jail. And when I got out of jail in California, I went back up on the hill. And the old man was out of jail by then. And I'm having it out with him. This is after we got raided. And he basically told me that they were, that they are what the cops said that they are. And I'm like sitting there thinking to myself, like feeling betrayed. And I'm like, I don't even feel bad for taking that 50 pack from you. Now that I know what the fuck you are, you owed me half of that anyways. Kiss my ass. And what's the AB going to do when they find out what Hippie is? Because that's his son, and who was in jail down in Reno at the time.
So this is, it's a lot. It's a lot to take in.
Well, there's also the second time that I took adrenochrome, because this was the last year I was out there. This is year number 5. It's the end of harvest. I'm getting tired. It's the end of the day. I can hear people yelling my name. I go downstairs to see what's outside. I see these 2 girls. They look young, like too young to be here. So I'm like, whose kids is that? And they're like, those are yours. I'm like, okay. I'm like, seriously, whose kids are those? And the girls are looking at me, and the one girl keeps calling me dad, daddy, dad. And I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like trying to figure out, like, are they whacked out on drugs? What's going on with them? And the other girl's like, Kevin, you were right about everything. You were right about everything. Oh my God, you're right. You're right. I'm like, I'm a smart ass. I'm like, yeah, I usually am right about everything, but I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. And they're like, no, you were. And there's a couple of Mexican guys with them. There was the little weird looking blonde guy with army fatigues, and Hippie and Zach were there. And they're sitting there, and they're trying to tell me that these girls are my daughters. And I'm like, first of all, I've only got one kid that I know of, and she's 2 years old, and she's at home with her mom in Ohio. What are you talking about? Because this kid looks like she's at least 13 or something, and the other one, who was supposed to be her half sister, was only 12 at the time. So in 2013, I have a 2-year-old daughter at home in Ohio with her 12-year-old half sister. And these 2 girls, who are 13 and 21 approximately, are sitting there telling me, hey, we are your daughter and her half sister. So obviously I'm like, I don't know what you guys are on or what's going on here, but you guys got to. And they're Hippie and Zach are like, no, these are your daughters. Okay, there's nothing you're gonna say that's going to convince me that. They're like, come on, let's go upstairs. And we went upstairs, and that's when they pulled out the bottle. And I asked them, I was like, what's in the bottle? And they're like, blood. I'm like, you guys are so fucking corny, man. You've watched Lost Boys way too many times. Seriously, what's in the bottle? Like, it's blood. Here, take some. I'm like, seriously? And I see him drink a little bit. I'm like, obviously that's not blood. Here, give it to me. And I take it and I smell it, and it doesn't smell like alcohol. I'm like, okay, how bad can it be if you just took a drink? So I take a drink, and I honestly don't remember what it tasted like. I know it didn't taste like alcohol, which is what I was expecting, like wine or something maybe. It didn't taste like blood, but I don't know what blood would really taste like anyways. I'm not sure what it tasted like, but I do know that immediately after I drank it, I felt like I was high as a kite. I've experimented with a variety of drugs throughout the course of my life. I've done cocaine, other stuff like that. This was like super cocaine. Like, here's another thing. When they told me that it was blood, I think they were like, we have to tell you it's blood. And I remember
Just like
before,
the first time, just like
the first, like they have to tell you. For some reason, they have to tell you what it is that they, and because they know you're not going to believe them. That's the thing. They know you're not going to believe them. That's why they tell you the truth. They'll look right at you and tell you the truth because they know you're not going to fucking believe them. And I didn't. So I took it again, and he's like has this real evil look on his face, like he almost looks possessed. And he's like, I raped her. I was like, that's it. I went after him, and Hippie's like grabbing my shoulder, trying to hold me back. He's like, Kevin, no. And there's no way he's stopping me. I'm gonna fucking get you. And Hippie looks up over his shoulder, like up into the empty air over his shoulder, and says, stop him. To what? I don't know. I take off across the room, and as I do, it felt like someone came up behind me with two big curved swords and stuck them under my legs from behind and picked me up off the ground like I was a rag doll, like I was nothing. And I remember thinking, how are my legs like not being cut off? This is what I'm thinking, like, what's going on here? And it carries me across the room and drops me down into my little chair that I sit in to do work. And then I can feel the tip of its like fingernail, sword, whatever, poked against my chest so that I can't move. And I'm like, I can't budge. I'm like sitting in this chair like, what the fuck just happened? This is when the story gets weird. Okay, this is when I start to lose people, is when I tell them about this. This is weird, right? So it wasn't two swords. It was like two fingernails, I guess. Two of the claws from this thing that I still couldn't see it, even when it picked me up and touched me and I could feel it, but it couldn't touch me until I drank the adrenochrome. And I think it's because these demons, they like exist on a different like a different dimension. They're on different dimensions. They're around us and we can't see them. But when you drink the adrenochrome, I don't know if it takes part of you to a different dimension. Like I said, it's almost like you have a dream more than get high.